Hey there and welcome to the channel. This one's going to be for the live sound folks. This time, I want to talk about one of the ways to approach learning a new mixing system. Though seasoned audio professionals might find moving around different mixers as easy as changing their shirts, to those who are just starting out or only really mix occasionally like volunteers, this task may be a bit more daunting. In this video, I want to share the approach I took to learn the StudioLive 32SC. And you can also apply the general idea of this approach to any new mixing environment. And the idea is, learn the basics first. Whatever you need to get the job done. Don't focus just yet on learning the fancy new features of your new mixer. Identify all the functions you use in your regular mixing workflow and learn those first. So here are the things that I studied first when I started using a StudioLive Series 3 console. Zeroing the mixer. This is always important in a digital mixing environment. Other than zeroing out the channel processing and clearing the channel names, there might be routing and other user settings that may have been changed that you don't know about. So this is a very important procedure to know. Here in the 32SC, let's go to Scenes, and here we can reset the scene or project. If you want to reset just the input channels and leave the output assignments and routing intact, just reset the scene. As you can see here, the input channels have been zeroed, but the flex mix assignments remain. Resetting from projects will bring the flex mix assignments, routing, and other user settings back to default. Also, don't confuse zeroing the mixer with resetting to factory settings. Depending on the mixer you're working with, doing a factory reset might actually wipe saved scenes, projects, and user presets, and you probably don't want to do that. Next, know how to access the typical input channel settings, what input processing is available to you, and how to operate them. Make sure to know where the typical functions are, like input source and output bus selection, 48-volt phantom power, high-pass filter, and polarity invert. Make sure to learn how to operate your gate, EQ, and compressor. In the case of the StudioLive mixers, you also get vintage emulations, which are pretty cool. One other thing that I discovered when I first used this mixer was the limiter on each channel. I rarely use it, but it's good to know that it's there. Here are two things that I want to share because I think it's quite important to know these if you're new to mixing with the StudioLive Series 3. Mute link settings will define how the mutes behave and by default is set to unlinked, where each channel has to be muted on the main mix and as well as the individual auxes. There are 4 options here, and I usually will just go ahead and set this to global mute link. This way, the mutes will behave just like most mixers out there. If I mute the channel in the main mix, it will be muted everywhere else. On the 32SC, you'll have 8 monographic EQs that are assignable, and by default is set to the main stereo output bus and the first 6 flex mixes. You have the option to move these EQs if you want to, and you simply have to tap on the different mixes to unassign them and reassign them. Another very important mixer function that I look into first are the ways to manage auxes. On the StudioLive Series 3 mixers, you're given 3 auxiliary pickoff points: pre-1, pre-2, and post. Pre-1 is a pre-fader signal that is taken before the EQ and compressor, and pre-2 will be a pre-fader signal that is taken after. The post option behaves as expected, taking signal after the main mix channel fader with all the channel processing included. Which one to use will depend on how you mix and what you are using the aux for. Next, I take a look at the ways to access the aux sends. Aux sends to faders is quite easy to do on the 32SC. Just simply select one of the flex mix buttons, and the faders will automatically jump into aux sends mode. One thing I was glad to see on the 32SC is that there is a sends option on the fat channel controls, which allows me to pick a channel and easily send the selected channel to different aux mixes. Simply tap on an aux and use the encoder to bring up the send to that mix. Next, let's talk about how to route the effects. Basically, you have 4 faders to check when you want to hear effects in the main or aux mixes. First, make sure the channel is up on the main mix, since effects sends are post-fader. Next, bring up the channel effects send. Do this by selecting an effects bus and bringing up the corresponding fader. Next, we have to look at the effects unit's output fader, which you can see both from the effects mix page, wherein this master fader becomes the effects unit's volume, or by going into the mix and effects masters bank. Then finally, bring up the effects return on the main mix or in any of the aux mixes that you want to hear the effects in. Hey check, 1, 2. Hey check, 1, 2. Finally, something you should know when trying to connect a remote control device like a tablet or computer is that you'll have to grant permission to access the mixer. Once you've connected your device, simply go to Home, then System, and into Permissions. Here you'll find the list of connected devices and will be able to define what they'll be able to control or not. You can choose to give full FOH control, or limit the access to just the auxiliaries or individual aux mixes. So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching.